What's going on in the archaeology world, how it points to the Bible, how it substantiates Scripture. Give us a nugget, something fun to think about.
Yeah, so I kind of went through and every now and then I try and get the latest stuff, but as with archaeology, you kind of study the past, so it's slow moving. So a lot of the reports and stuff that you see is actually probably a year or two old. But one of the most recent things that you see in media now is in the City of David dig.
Can I ask you a quick question about that? Because I think that's an interesting... I've never heard that before. So archaeologists, they'll be on a site. Mm-hmm. And a site would be like what? Like what? Within Israel.
So
a biblical site.
Israel, or even here in the U.S., a lot of times you have to send an archaeologist to do a survey before you start construction on anything. And it's not to necessarily save things, it's to document what was there underneath. And oftentimes in Israel, it's a small country. And
that has a lot of history.
And the City of David, for example, was they were expanding a parking lot. And so they have to send in archaeologists to do surveys.
Just real quick, for those of us who are geographically challenged, you are drawing a distinction between the City of David and the City of Jerusalem proper. Because when you say City of David, I generally think of Jerusalem.
That's a great question. Yes.
So the City of David is, biblically speaking, separate from Jerusalem, but it's only about 100 to 200 yards outside the city walls.
Justin, if you mind, let me give you a little geography. So you have... think about a V shape as Mount Moriah.
Okay.
And on one side, you have the Kidron Valley, and that separates Mount Moriah from the mountain next to it, which is the Mount of Olives. So most of the picturesque views, the panorama views of Jerusalem that you'll get with the Dome of the Rock, the Temple Mount, are taken from the Mount of Olives across the Kidron.
Great little restaurant up there where you can eat falafel and shawarma up at the top of Mount Olives.
What's the valley on the other side? I'd say, would that be the western side? There's another valley. I'm trying to think of it.
I don't remember the name.
Maybe the Valley of the Doves. I know the Valley of the Doves goes back down towards the Dead Sea, but so there's these two valleys, and that is Mount Moriah. The original city, the enclave, Jebus. So there was Salem, Genesis 10, which goes back to Melchizedek. We don't know much of anything regarding that. But by the time of David, you had Jebus. The Jebusites had settled, had built a fortified city because it was elevated during the time of Joshua, the judges. Nobody had conquered it. So the Jebusites, who are not Jewish, had their own place, their own water source. They had their own city, and nobody could mess with it. But it was towards the bottom half of this mountain, okay? So that bottom third was the city of Jebus, which would become Jerusalem because David would conquer it. That then becomes the old city of David. Now, David's heart was to build a temple. Now, Solomon wouldn't have seen...
So not to interrupt, but I think a lot of times when people think about cities and towns in ancient times, they're not talking about massive sprawling cities. I don't know if you...
They're very small.
Very small. When you're talking about city and stuff like that, they're talking about basically city square size stuff.
Yes,
so
that's a great distinction.
Yeah, and most of your modern towns here in the U.S. and I assume in other places, it's not the sprawlingness of that city. Atlanta stretches
hundreds of miles.
No, I'm talking about downtown Monroe or downtown Winder.
You're talking Old West city.
Yeah, just a city.
It is it's just the things on the main road.
Right. So what we call cities, they're more like towns or villages.
Well, I'll give you a good example. So we just had the British Open this past week, rural Portsmouth or whatever. There's the town, and they were at one of the specials related to the golf thing. They had the original old walls that date back to the 11th century or whatever. This is Northern Ireland, but it's a mile walk.
Around?
Yeah, just the whole wall of the ancient city is just a mile in circumference. So, as an example, now the city's grown out beyond that, but the walled city was for protection. So Mount Moriah, the bottom half of it was basically the Jebusites and then became the old city of David. But David wanted to construct a temple. That would require a footprint. Above the city, the top of the mount, is where the temple would get built. And then Solomon would come in, expand the construction. Solomon would lead Israel into its zenith. Jerusalem, its capital, would reflect that. So there would be a lot more construction, Solomon's temple, etc., which ties into a little bit of what you're saying. So as far as the geography goes, the temple was above the city, and then the city begins to grow up kind of around the temple structure.
Gotcha.
And whatnot. But there's a hard geography to Jerusalem that you can't expand beyond, and that's the valleys that designate it. So there is a defined portion of Jerusalem.
And by mountains, like Mount Moriah, Mountain of Olives.
It's a hill.
It's a hill.
Yeah, like Stone. Think of Stone Mountain if you're local.
And if you ever make it out to Jerusalem and you say, "Oh, I'm going to hike to the top of the Mount of Olives," it looks like it's flat, and then you round this little curve on the road, and it's
very steep,
straight up.
It is steep. Yes, it very much.
But anyway,
is.
I would love to go to Jerusalem one day. I've never been.
You will
one
at
of the
one
days.
point.
One
Yeah.
day.
And Mount of Olives might be split in two by that point.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, at some point we're all going to go there. At some
So if you're looking from the Mount of Olives towards Jerusalem, off to the left is the city of David.
Yes.
A little small area, about the size of a parking lot of a Walmart, or less than a Walmart parking lot.
which in the South is very large.
Yeah, very large. So it could, I don't know, maybe the old city of Jerusalem and all the city of David could fit in a Walmart parking lot.
The old city, especially if it borders a Sam's Club.
Right. And so you got this small little area, and what's cool about the discovery, I was there, so I got my degree from Tel Aviv University, master's degree there, and so I got to go visit these sites.
Shout out to the Fighting Jews.
That's right. Tel Aviv Pioneers, I played football for them. Go Pios. So I got to go to a lot of places, go under some of the tunnels in Jerusalem that normal people couldn't go through and stuff like that. Got to go into the city of David and view the current dig that's been going on for a long time. And so I haven't been to the city of David since, I think the last time I was there was maybe 2018, maybe. But the last time I actually had pictures
It
from
was
there,
BC before COVID.
right. It was, yeah. But the last time I have pictures where I actually got to go look at the stuff there was 2013. And I'll show Creighton and Zach some of the pictures. Where they're at now and where they found this is probably about 20 to 30 feet below where I was before.
Now
like
explain
into the earth.
explain
into
how
the
that
earth, yeah.
works.
So-
and we're running out of time, so we got to
Right.
make this quick.
I'll make it quick. So archaeology is a destructive science.
And we
right?
could throw that picture up, yeah.
Our goal as archaeologists is to document. Not everything belongs in a museum. That's just impractical, right? And so you start digging. Maybe you're surveying for a parking lot. You find some stuff. You dig a little bit more, find it, document it, take pictures, throw it in the garbage or throw it down the hill, whatever you need to do. Take the important stuff, document it, write reports. And so this has been going on for a long time in the city of David. And so recently they I think sometime in late 2024, they found a section of the old city walls that were expanded during the time of Solomon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so
This is 2 Samuel time period.
right, and so the picture you're
wild. seeing
seeing on screen right now is part of this wall, and it probably just looks like a bunch of rocks that are piled up, and that's basically all it was. It was a defensive wall to expand the outer defenses of this wall. And what's interesting is you find the walls and you can match those with the destruction of the walls that you find from the Babylonians.
Put the picture up real quick because just as an observation, yes, okay, pile of rocks, whatever. But archaeologists, as you're digging through,
Yeah, you find stuff other than rocks.
well,
So-
but even then it becomes evident that, like, okay, this is not a pile of rocks that would have naturally occurred in the wild.
Oh yeah, obviously. But what's nice and how they can date,
Yes, there's not a bag of Quickcrete, but it's very evident.
but how they can date
man-made.
It was
Right.
intentional.
and how
Right.
they can date it and how they date it back to this time period is style, but also they found some like Babylonian stamps and stuff like that they can date it to where if we found this stamp here, this has to be from this time period or earlier to date that, and that comes
Which is
from,
so cool.
That comes from that time period of about plus or minus 1,000 BC. So
Which again, so David took over the city of Jebus, becomes the city of David, becomes Jerusalem, city of peace. David wants to build the temple, isn't allowed to. God doesn't let him. David does some fortifications, but it's Solomon that really takes Jerusalem to that next level. And then King Uzziah does some renovations, Hezekiah does some renovations, but like Solomon is credited with the pure formation of these outer walls, defensive mechanisms, and the expansion of Jerusalem
Right.
proper.
And
So
what this
those
does-
walls date to Solomon, probably.
And what this correlates to me, especially in today's modern news cycle, where you see a lot about the Palestinians, and there's no evidence for Jewish people. They're saying they're occupying land. There's obvious evidence that matches with biblical accounts,
Right.
that you see over and over and over and over again. And if you dispute that, you're just delusional. And coming from that argument is asinine to me. And
well, you're going into it with a prejudice right from the beginning.
I am, but
No, I'm talking about the other people.
Oh yeah. It's definitely that. But at the same time, like evidence upon evidence upon evidence upon evidence that the Jews have been there for thousands of years.
Right, yeah.
And you come and say that they're occupying the land and not returning to the land of their forefathers is it matches biblically, which
It's
then
awesome. Very
which
cool.
then goes to eschatologically to
a
what
big
we
word.
believe. Yeah.
Only used by an archaeologicalist.
Right. and I find that interesting. So the small things like a wall that you find in the middle of just outside of Jerusalem can kind of point the way towards Jesus and the veracity of the Bible. And
Awesome.
I find that awesome.
Spice Daddy Digs, part 2. There you
Digging.
go. We ought to come up with some graphic of you just digging a hole or something.